Thank you for joining me today. I'm Madeline Blair, and this is Unlocked. You can't have a successful career without knowing how to deal with the unexpected, and Unlocked is here to help you do that. If you're a person who sets goals that challenge you to fully reach your potential, this show is for you. This is a show all about opening possibilities so that when you are hit with the unexpected, you have options from which to choose. You can learn more about the show on my website, madelineblair.com/unlockedtv. And it includes all the replays of earlier shows. And if you have topic ideas or questions, just email them to me at madeline@madelineblair.com. Believe it or not, some of the topics that were suggested by people have become shows. So please do that. And if you're curious about the background of this show, check out my book, Unlocked: Discover How to Embrace the Unexpected. It's available on Kindle, audio, or paperback. If you would like to explore what it means to build and nurture your resilience with me as your mentor, reach out directly to me to schedule a conversation. Just write to madeline@madelineblair.com. Be sure to sign up for my newsletter at my website and be kept up to date on upcoming guests of the show and my offerings for building the resilience you need for handling the disruptions in life. Today, I want to focus on the amazing workings of our bodies. Our body that allows us to do what we want to do or have to do. Attention to our bodies is often focused on looking good. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, except that we also need to be functional. Over 20 years ago, I was injured. Had I been fit, I would have been just uncomfortable for a while. But I wasn't fit. So I spent 2 months in a wheelchair until I was able to do physical therapy, which, by the way, we'll refer to sometimes as PT. So I did it. And 6 weeks later, thanks to physical therapy, I was able to walk with a cane and a brace. Since then, thanks to spending 20 plus years attending to my body through special exercises, I now need neither cane nor brace. I thank those physical therapists almost daily because when the surgeons could not do anything for me, the physical therapist got me back on my feet. Now, although my career eventually recovered, it took a real dip along with the injury to my body. I'm sure you know this story, Seabiscuit, an American legend. That wonderful true story of an injured horse who eventually was a major winner. The author, Laura Hellenbrand, said, "Man is preoccupied with freedom, yet laden with handicaps. The breadth of his activity and experience is narrowed by the limitations of his relatively weak and sluggish body." Today, we're going to talk with Dr. Kathy Shirley, a physical therapist who will help us discover how to care for this relatively weak and sluggish body. All right, and without further ado, let me bring Dr. Kathy Shirley on. Welcome, Kathy, to Unlocked.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I look forward to this conversation about taking care of the bodies that we have throughout our lifetime.
Great. Thank you. Well, I have to tell everybody a little bit about you so they understand a little bit more. Dr. Kathy Shirley holds a doctorate in clinical practice of physical therapy. She's a physical therapist with board certification in geriatric physical therapy, specializing in vestibular rehabilitation, that is to say, balance and fall prevention, and a former assistant clinical professor at Texas Women's University in Dallas, Texas. She's a graduate of Dr. Lamb's Tai-Chi for rehabilitation and Tai-Chi for arthritis and fall prevention programs. She is an active member of the Tai-Chi for Health and Wellness community in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. Dr. Shirley is also a Franklin Method educator, incorporating the use of mental imagery during movement, as well as the understanding and embodiment of the functional design of the body. Wow. Again, welcome, Kathy, to Unlocked. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. I'm always happy to talk about how we take care of our bodies or how we can hopefully take care of our bodies. You know, a very important aspect to our careers and in general, a happiness, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I can say that from experience. Well, I am always curious about how people find themselves where they ended up. So, in your case, physical therapy, what drew you to it?
Yeah. So, not everybody has this experience. But when I was 15, I lived in Southwest Philadelphia and we lived in row homes. So it's a tight community, that area. And my next door neighbor, unfortunately, suffered a very severe brain injury at the age of 17. And so for his rehab, once he came home, they recruited the entire neighborhood to assist with his care, especially an exercise routine that was required. So that the physical therapist in the community came to the home and educated everybody that was going to be part of his team to do these exercises. And I had the opportunity to assist and watch him improve and to watch the physical therapist interact with both him and also the family and the friends, right? The community. And I was so impressed by this man. Like, that was the thing. Actually, it was his interaction with the family that gravitated me. It was like, wow, look at that. Look at how he was kind, but he was firm. He was very straightforward. This is what we need to do. This is how we need to do it. And he had hope, which is something that if we don't know how to give that to people, we are really not very valuable in the health professions. So I had a great first, the ideal, right? And then from that, like I went in that summer, I went and volunteered in the hospital where he was the director. I was a little candy striper because that's what it was back then in the 70s. And that was the start of it. So from the time I was 15, I was involved in some way with figuring out how could I enter the world of physical therapy.
That is a beautiful story. You know what is the most beautiful is that he involved the whole community.
Yes.
I think sometimes we forget that when we need help, sometimes it's more than just the people immediately around us.
Right.
Beautiful story.
And yeah, it's key. It's not sometimes, actually, it's pretty much all the time. We don't live on an island by ourselves, and we cannot improve on an island by ourselves. Yeah.
Mm. I love it because in resilience, that's one of the characteristics of highly resilient people. They have a support community around them. And so that's a wonderful part of your story. Well, as I prepare for these for these conversations, I always ask teenagers, what would they like to ask if they sat in my seat? So this is the question they have. What is most demanding about your career?
So, yeah, the most demanding thing about a career in physical therapy, in my perspective, is that you have to be able to immediately set up a connection with the individual that you're going to be working with. And once you set up that connection, you have to be very clear in everybody understanding this is how things are. Because if we're not clear, then typically people are afraid. Right? Most people that come into physical therapy have something pretty serious that's going on, or they have lost something that in their mind is serious. Maybe they're still highly functional. An elite athlete is highly functional, but they've lost a key component to their game. That's a different story than somebody who has a spinal cord injury, but it's loss across the spectrum. They've lost something. So I have to make it very clear about what are we going to do to get back whatever you perceive you've lost, and what's the reality of that. And then we have to build up the confidence, like, okay, this person understands what they're doing and they're going to guide me in a very solid way that I feel confident I can do what is needed, right? So that confidence piece is huge. People have to believe that they can do something, right? And then once we have established that, well, then we come to the challenge of we have to make it challenging, right? Nothing easy gets us better. It's got to be challenging. And then once we have challenge, depending on the spectrum of the person's ability, we have to have complexity, right? How far can we go with this? So And the thing that's really interesting about that challenge is how much you learn from the individual. Like, so if I'm working with somebody, if I'm teaching in a community, I am always learning too. So it's not just that. That's, I think, so maybe that's the challenge. Like, how do we do all this? But the benefit is that I get to learn
Mm.
as I go through this process with the individual I'm dealing with. So it's both ways. Yeah. So that's number one challenge. Number two challenge is that physical therapists work across a spectrum of dysfunction in individuals, right? And it's not always dysfunction. We do prevention. It's probably not something people talk about a lot. They only think, oh, well, you see a physical therapist when something's terribly wrong. But we also are involved in prevention. But a physical therapist can be working with an infant in neonatal intensive care, and they can be working with somebody who's 105. Now, they can be working with somebody with severe brain injury, limited mobility, all the way to the elite athlete. So the challenge is we really have a spectrum of knowledge that we have to understand a very wide range of problems. And how do we deal with that wide range of problems? And that's why there's so many specialties within the profession, because it's hard. It's hard to be really good in, working with elite athletes and then also in the neonatal intensive care. I mean, you're not really going to have the same person doing that. So I guess it's possible, but it's not probable.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, after all, I go to a gynecologist for certain things, like having babies, but then I may go to an orthopedist to deal with
Right.
my toe that needs to be redone or something.
Yes, yes. So we have specialized, over the years. When I first began, we didn't have quite as many specialties, but now
Mhm.
we are very highly specialized. And there's pros and cons to that. So, we still have to have some general knowledge, right? So we need people, the rural physical therapists, I really give them a lot of credit because,
Mm.
they have to be able to sort of take anybody that walks in the door and then know what to do with them, or at least send them in the right pathway.
Yeah.
Versus somebody who maybe is at a university setting. It's very easy for them to be in a niche, and then that's just what they do.
Mm.
So actually, the challenge, I think, sometimes is in the rural areas.
But if I hear you right, your your I'll call it your general specialty is the physical aspects of the body. So you don't deal with the chemistry of the body or
Well, so we don't deal with the chemistry of the body, say directly, but indirectly, how we move our body changes the chemistry of the body.
oh, you have to say more about that.
So, so in understanding, like, if we do not move, we change the circulation of our body. If we change the circulation of our body, we change the chemistry of our body. So not only by what the nutrition that we put into our body that manages the chemistry of our body, how we move will change the chemistry. It changes all the systems. So, our cardiovascular system, everything is involved in movement. So nothing that's living is not moving. So therefore, even though our specialty is movement, secondarily, we are improving many other things within the
Ah,
body.
huh, well said. Well, the title of our conversation today is Successes in the Details, Healthy Behaviors. Tell me why we decided on this title, because it was your suggestion, as I recall.
Yeah, yeah, we went through some different ideas. So
We
I'll
did.
say, specific to the idea of successes in the details, is that the idea of that we need awareness, right? So an awareness is what allows us to know there are details. And if we have that awareness, we can then change what's going on with details in our lives or in our bodies. So success to me is part of we are aware of our environment, our surroundings, and what we're doing. Um, we started a little bit before talk because I have been talking about I have a puppy now, right? And
Yeah.
and I'm going through this massive puppy training, which has really been fundamentally a wonderful experience. And there's so much available now that's online for learning. So my puppy has taught me many things about behavior, and behavior and why we do certain things is very ingrained into how can we maintain our health. So, healthy behaviors has the word behavior. Now, why are certain behaviors going on and somebody's not making a good health decision? Or we have certain behaviors and they are making a good health decision. And how do we keep on influencing people to make the better decision, which is probably one of the biggest challenges that I have. If I could go back and add the challenge, the question from the beginning, it would be, how do I help people understand this is worth the energy effort that it's going to take to change a behavior? That's a big thing, right? It's like,
Mm.
why would somebody keep on moving, keep on exercising? I've asked them to exercise. And how are they going to come to grips with, oh, but I'm a busy person. I really don't have time. I have 3 small children. I run a business. I don't have that kind of time. But investing that kind of time is actually, on the other end, going to really change the foundation of your health, the ability of your mind to work well, the ability for you to manage stress of your 3 small children and the business you run. So it's like trying to figure out what is going to be the key thing for that individual to buy into it and say, I'm willing to do this, and I'm willing to do it long term. Because sometimes what happens is people believe that, well, okay, I've been given this little routine. This is my exercise routine, post surgery, whatever happened. And while I'm in PT, I'm really good about doing it. Somebody's monitoring me. But now I've been discharged, and maybe there's been some recommendations for community programs to continue this with a physical trainer versus physical therapy. How are we going to maintain this established good behavior? So, and if we haven't really kept that up, then all the movement or all the really good things that we were doing that helped with recovery, sort of little by little, right? They go down the thing. It's like all the different things we do in the new year, and we say that, oh, I'm going to do these new resolutions, and they really don't stay. Once we stop moving, once we stop taking care of our body, well, it's going to come back. Whatever it was, it's coming back. And then people, depends on how they look at that. Well, is it because I stopped my healthy behaviors, or is it just because, I'm getting older, or this is just the norm, and, there's nothing I can do about this? Those are the kinds of mindsets we have to really change.
Yeah. In a way, I think I was, I'll say, lucky in quotes when I was injured, because prior to that, I knew that I was supposed to do exercise. I mean, my mother exercised every day of her life until she was 95 when she finally passed. And she was able to do amazing things all through her life. There was never any diminution of her, except maybe she wasn't as strong when she got older. But I didn't do it. But let me tell you, 2 weeks in a wheelchair, I said never, ever again. So for 23 years, I have been doing my weekly exercises.
Yeah.
I only do them weekly. In between, I do other things, but yeah. So
But you were very active, right? So, and you found something that you enjoy and that you can keep up with.
No, I knew I had to. And the key for me, now this is interesting. The key for me was that I was doing a program. It's called Pilates. You never get bored in Pilates because they have hundreds of exercises. I mean, so you don't go in and you do the same 6 things. No. You do all kinds of different. So I never got bored. And for me, that's really important to keep me going.
It is important. So you actually found something that you enjoyed that kept you really connected to your body to keep on going. That is the key, right? And if we can help people find that, and if it's Pilates, if it's running, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter.
Yep.
It is movement.
It's movement. Now, speaking of movement, many of us, and myself included, spend hours at a computer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are the effects on our bodies if we sit there with our eyes focused on the same distance for hours at a time? And I'm guilty of this. Have you seen where the impact on someone's body actually limited their career potential in the end?
Well, most certainly. I've had many people who became injured because of their sedentary lifestyle, right? Or their inability to figure out a way to be in front of the computer with movement of some way, of some kind. So if you can just, so let's just, as we're sitting here, like just sort of feel your body, right? So typically if we're working on the keyboard, our hands are forward, right? So, and then look at the position that your arms are in. You know, your elbows are bent, your wrists are maybe flexed, your fingers are, so, and they're constantly in that position versus if they're moving out, right? So if you can look at, like I will say to, I used to use this as sort of a metaphor with some of my patients. I would say that I don't want you to take the shape of the chair. Right. So like if we're sitting in a chair, if it's because of work or because we like to read, we like to watch TV, and that's something that gives us more joy than moving. It hasn't really gotten to that stage where joy is more in movement. Well, then you're taking the shape of whatever you do most. And so if you sit, you take the shape of sitting, and without any adaptability. So what the body needs is the ability, there's nothing wrong with sitting, but it just can't do it all the time, right? We have to be able to move in and out of positions. And that's actually what posture is. Posture is not like one thing. Posture is moving in and out of all sorts of positions. And how do you hold your body as you're doing that?
So posture is really about the movement.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right.
not, it's not the standing straight and holding the book on the top of your head.
I can't function like that, right? I can't just stay there. There's nothing to life that keeps me just standing with the book on top of my head. I have to be able to move in and out of standing, of sitting, of onto the floor, up from the floor, down to work with a child if I'm, if I have children, or whatever my occupation might be. I don't do anything in just one position. So posture is actually changing positions. And how do you do that?
And how do you do that? Oh, wow, you've just opened up a whole new understanding in my mind about posture.
Yeah, so it's dynamic. And I think that we have been given the idea that it's static, right? But if you try to hold a posture, so like in sitting, like somebody will say, well, sit up straight. And if you sit up, and you can try this right now, Madeline, like sit up really straight, pull your shoulder blades back together, okay? And now try to type. I mean,
Very hard.
It's really hard, right? There's too much tension. That's not good posture. That's just tension. so we need to the body has to have a flow, so we have to find our flow both mentally and physically as we're working. And like that term, oh, they're in the flow, right? If something's going really well, they're in the flow. Nobody says they're in the static. That's not a good term.
Oh, that's a whole new meaning for me of in the flow. I always think of it as what's happening up here.
Yeah. So it's used across many, mentally, physically. Okay? Yeah. The pitcher, you can watch. I like baseball. You watch a pitcher, they're having a great night. They're in the flow. Yeah. And you can watch it. You can see it, right? You can see their body. You can see their mind. I mean, that's or maybe we call it Zen, whatever but it's a flow, right? Life is easy when we're in the flow. Life is not easy when we're in static.
Yeah, when we're in static. I love it. Now, you also have studied and work with Tai Chi.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about this and why you're drawn to that particular form.
Yeah, so I was really drawn to Tai Chi about 20 years ago when I started to very formally specialize in the vestibular system, which is the balance system in the body. So like, our eyes are part of our balance system, our ears, the joints and the receptors that tell us where we are in space. So I had been reading the initial research on Tai Chi, and it was very, very good about changing balance. And so I was just like, well, I wonder why. And at about the same time, I had this personal experience where I was a long distance runner for many years, and I was at a conference in San Francisco. And so I decided to run from where the conference setting was across the Golden Gate Bridge and then come back. Yeah, and it was a great experience. But anyways, as I'm running towards the Golden Gate Bridge, I come up to this beautiful park in San Francisco, and it's early morning, and there's trees, and the sun is coming through the trees, and in the underneath this is a group of maybe 50 people of different ages, but most were older, and they're doing Tai Chi. And it was like I saw them, and it was like this big, I mean, I literally just stopped. And I'm a runner, we don't normally stop. I just stopped. And for about 15 minutes, I was mesmerized just watching it. So, not only the physical therapy part of my mind was like looking at this, and I had heard a little bit about Tai Chi, but I hadn't experienced it personally. So I'm watching them, and it was just so beautiful and so fluid. The flow was definitely there. And it was diverse, like ages, abilities. So we're not just seeing some elite pitcher out there. I mean,
Mhm.
it's everybody is having a connection to this movement. So that was the beginning. Now, and then I took a course.
And then I took a course. So did you finish? Did you ever run across the bridge and back?
Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I
Oh,
did.
good, good, good. I'm glad. I'm glad
Yeah,
you didn't.
it was a wonderful, it's one of my favorite memories of running. It was a very good experience.
Now, I'm curious. Uh, what were you attempting to achieve? Was it the view? Was it the feeling? Was it just the sense of accomplishment?
In running?
And in running that bridge? I mean, I can
Oh,
think of many reasons why I would do it.
yeah. No, it was the idea that I could run over the Golden Gate Bridge. It was
Ah,
just that idea. I'm going to run over this bridge. I'm going to see San Francisco from the bridge because I could. At that time, I was a long distance runner. It was something that was available to my body, so I wanted to experience it. And it was a joyful experience. So it's a beautiful place, right? And yes, it did. It was confidence. Oh, because I can say I ran over the Golden Gate Bridge, right? It's like, um, yeah. So there were multiple reasons behind it.
thank you. Thank you. Now, let's come back to Tai Chi because I just love the fact that you experienced it through observing a group. Do you now bring that into your work?
Oh yes. So in the final year, so no, I am no longer a clinical practitioner, but in my final years of clinical work, most definitely, Tai Chi was a huge part of any of my balance interventions.
Mhm.
And I would always bring it up because I wanted people to find a way to continue into the community. So again, once somebody leaves the care of a physical therapist, I don't want it to just like, it's not we shut the doors, okay, everything's all done. It's got to be like we've given you this groundwork. Now I need to help you find something in the community where you can keep this up and keep on going. So Tai Chi was always an option. Now some people don't, that's not their thing, so I'm not going to force that. But I'm always going to present. We have really good evidence-based research on Tai Chi and balance. There's Tai Chi in the community. This is near you. Is this something you might want to consider? Why don't you go just check it out? And I'm usually doing this while they're still under my care so we can talk about it.
Mhm.
Not the day they leave. Oh, okay, see you, bye. Why don't you check out Tai Chi? It's let's work on this together. Let's see if I can like sort of that fishing line out there and hook you into doing this because I see the value to it, but it won't matter if the individual doesn't see the value to it. Right.
I love this strategy because it both motivates and supports. I mean, it's two things going at the same time. And oftentimes when I'm working with people on resilience, that's what I want to do. I want to get them to where it's both the motivation and the support is happening together.
Right. We can't make anybody do anything, right?
No,
No.
no,
And the
doesn't
faster
work.
we realize that, the more successful we are.
Yep.
The idea must always come from them.
Yep.
We throw things out, but it's up to the person.
Up to the person. Well, speaking of throwing things out, uh, I often ask my guests if there's a way we can demonstrate something. Now, we talked earlier about sitting at a computer all the day. What can I do? And can we demonstrate something for our audience?
Yeah. So we'll
And
do like a little mix of something very simple in Tai Chi and then also something very simple with the Franklin method concepts,
okay.
right? And so if we're in sitting, and you just have to have enough room, so like I'm going to scoot back just a little bit. And can you see like my arms pretty well?
Let me shift our perspective on the screen, and I think that will help. Now,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. All right. So in Tai Chi is about, so Chi is life force. Okay. And I'm very simplistic way because we don't have a lot of time with this. And life force, when we talk, at least in a medical perspective, is our breath, or the oxygen is the energy currency of the body. So Chi is basically breath and energy and how we move it through our body. So in sitting, a couple simple moves that we can do that would start to move chi through our body is just to raise your arms up, flip your hands, and then make like a circle. Yeah. So, and then we're doing an inhale, and this is exhale. And typically we would inhale through our nose and exhale. And one of the Tai Chi principles are focus. So are we paying attention to what we're doing? So one more. Inhale, exhale. Good. And now just sort of take a moment to notice your body. Would have been ideal if I'd asked you to notice it first before we did that, but we'll do a few other things where we'll change from that. So notice your body and maybe how you're sitting on the chair. Do you notice like your sitting bones, the pelvis sitting on the chair?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one side versus the other. Are they similar? Or maybe you notice there's more weight. And I'm just throwing things out, not saying whatever it is. Can you feel your shoulder blades? You know, our wing bones on your back?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you sort of feel the sternum? Maybe you can touch. So this is the sternum. So I'll bring out, we'll do a little bit of, so Franklin method uses a lot more of understanding what's happening with our body. So here's the sternum, right? Here's the breastbone. And if you find this little notch, so right on the top here, you find that little notch, and then just rub down, there you are on the breastbone. And you see these little, they look sort of clear. It's plastic on my model, but in the body, it would be cartilage, right? And then each of these, the ribs would then be connected to the cartilage here. And we have a couple floating. So we have 12 ribs, right? So on both sides. And what do you think's underneath this?
Right? Well, my heart's supposed to be under there, right?
That's right, right. And then what else would be under there that's going to take the chi, right? The lungs, the oxygen is coming in. So let's do a little thing with understanding where the ribs are, or how this, we call this the rib cage, right? But that's sort of a bad term, because can you imagine, why would we have cartilage here versus the whole thing being bone?
Oh, so it can move.
Yes, exactly. So this gives great mobility to the rib cage, even though that word doesn't sound like it should be mobile, because what must happen underneath this? When we take a breath in, the lungs have to be able to expand. And they have to, I'll have my little children's toy here. They have to be able to expand in all directions.
Ooh.
Right? So if you notice or you feel, so let's feel the front direction. We have the sternum. If you go down the side, okay, you could start feeling your ribs, right? On one side and then on the other side. And they go all the way around. The ribs go all the way around to the spine. Okay, so here's that cage that has to be able to expand. So if you can, see if you can find two ribs. So if I just rub my hand down the side here, I'm going to sort of rub over a couple ribs. So here's two ribs, right? So see if you find any two, okay? And then just put your hands around them. So now when you take a breath in, and then you breathe out, what do you notice happening under your hands? When you breathe in, do you feel your ribs move apart or together?
Oh, they're moving apart.
Yeah, okay. All right. And then when you breathe out, do you feel your fingers come closer together? Right.
Hmm.
So let's just stay on whatever two ribs you chose and do a couple breaths. And you're noticing, oh, I breathe in, they move apart. I breathe out, they come together. So they're sort of like a fan, right? So the side ribs are opening up, fanning up. Another image might be if people know what an accordion is, the accordion opens, the accordion closes. Okay, so we just did one side, right, Madeline? So let's just let our arms rest in our lap. And now just take a breath and notice the side you were touching and focusing and paying attention to those ribs. And then take a breath again, but notice the other side. And can you put into words what you notice?
I'm much more aware of the side that I was touching. I'm just aware of it better. The other side, it's sort of hidden, and it feels hidden.
Right. So in the Franklin method, we use touch, we use the mental imagery during the movement to change that awareness of what's going on. So let's make sure we can be aware of the other side too. We can't be unbalanced. So find a couple ribs, and it doesn't have to be the exact same ones. And you're taking a breath, and you're noticing ribs come apart when I inhale, ribs go together when I exhale. And I gave you a couple images, right? So the image of the fan, and then I gave you an image of an accordion. Was one image preferable?
What I liked best was the child's toy.
Okay, so right, I gave you, that's right, a third image. Okay, so and this shows you how imagery is personal, right? So what's your favorite image is not necessarily my favorite image, but you like this one. So we would then, in the Franklin method, we use what we have learned is giving a positive change within our own body, right? So we've done that other side. So now let's just take a breath again. Notice. So like for me now, I'm a little bit more even, right? It's like
Yep.
I can feel both sides. They're more awareness. Now let's go back to our Tai Chi move. And we're just going to inhale, exhale. And maybe one more. Inhale, exhale. Okay, and now let's just notice. What's it like sitting in the chair now? How do I feel? You know, like for me, I feel taller. So I have a sense that I'm maybe a little taller, a little lighter.
For me, it's a question of feeling that my lungs are bigger
Okay.
now.
Right. So you felt that expansion.
Yeah. And I think this is just an amazing few things that we've done that anybody could do at their desk.
Right. This is very simple. Right. And there's many things of, you know, like you might notice that, oh, well, maybe the front of my body feels a little longer, or it's easier to sit upright, because we don't want to make people think that you have to sit up straight, because you felt like what that was like, right? Shoulder blades back and down. That's tension. And tension is not what we want in posture, because posture is dynamic. It is not static. Right? So we're trying to give the person that feel. And Tai Chi is all about flow, from one movement to another movement, from one posture to another posture, and what happens in between. And the
Okay.
Franklin method simply allows somebody to have a better awareness or understanding of their own body, and then they can use it in however they want to move.
Okay. Now I'm going to challenge you. I post every week on LinkedIn something that I call Resilience Brilliance. Now, this is a short publication. I mean, it's, you know, if it were on typed out, it'd be less than a page. It introduces behaviors or characteristics of leaders who are resilient. And then it offers strategies for bringing that behavior into their own life. Now, for example, resilient leaders practice adaptability in small moments so that they can be more flexible in big moments. And then you say that, and then it says, here's the strategy, is to stay mindful this week of small situations that require you to adapt or change. And it might be a moved appointment, an impromptu invitation, or a minor inconvenience. Try to remember them and how you handled each. It's a great practice for developing your resilience muscle. Okay, that's an example of a resilience brilliance publication. Okay, let's say that the behavior of the resilient leader is that they take special care that their staff remain healthy when the team is pressed by a deadline. So, Kathy, what strategies would you recommend for this resilient leader for doing this?
Yeah, so the resilient leader wants flow and not static, right? So we have to figure out a way that people can be aware that the investment of, and it can be 30 seconds of, let's just all close our eyes for a moment. You know, maybe we all just take one breath. Maybe let's just leave this for a minute and talk to each other so that we build connection, we build confidence that people are listening to me. People recognize, that leader recognizes we have to take a break because what's happening right now isn't working. So they have recognized that and they're doing something different. And it really doesn't matter what the different is, it's not the same thing. Right? So, but if we can bring in the different is, let's move. Why don't we instead take a break out of this conference room and let's go take a walk together? And this group is the group working on this problem. Why don't you guys walk together? And then this group's over here and you walk. So we just move. As long as people are capable of all walking together, right? We have to look at maybe there are some differences in ability.
Yeah.
But it is the idea of changing something.
You
So,
know, as you're talking about this, I'm realizing I have had the pleasure of working with a resilient leader. And the fascinating thing was they didn't ask us to close our eyes because that's in business, that's really hard for people to do around the board table. But they might, and I have seen this now that I'm thinking about it, they might all of a sudden say, you know, I just remembered this thing that happened to me this morning. And they'll tell you a little story about something that happened. And they'll even apologize. I'm sorry to disrupt you, but it just made such an impression on me. And it gave everybody a moment to shift their attention. So you, as you said, doesn't matter what the shift is. Make sure that you're doing something different. Now,
right.
that's only a mental shift, and you're suggesting a physical shift as well, which is great.
Right. Yeah. It's, we have to read the room, right? That's a big thing. And reading the room is about awareness. So I think it really comes back to, are you aware of your external environment? And then are you aware of your body? How is your body responding to what is happening? And if you have that awareness, then you can make a change. If you do not have that awareness, you can't make the change because you don't know what's happening. Right. So it comes back to, I think, resilient leaders, people who have resilience, have awareness that they must do something different. Doesn't really matter what the difference is, per se, as long as within a safe range, right? But they have to do something different because what they are doing is not working.
It's not working. Yeah. Or it may be appearing to work, but it's getting less and less creative or less. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, I can't believe we're almost running out of time, but I want to give you a chance to just say a few more things. Two things. One is, if you were to say the one big thing that you learned from your work with physical therapy, what was it? What is it?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is success within my career and success for the individuals I worked with really came down to Communication and adaptability.
Mm.
So in communication, it was that, am I truly having a conversation with people and I'm listening to them and I'm being open to, yeah, I think I know the best way this should go. I am definitely good at what I do. But the timing of being forceful to, you can't make, we said it before, right? Can't make anybody do anything. So the timing of how I enter into, really would be better to do it my way is important. And as a very young physical therapist in my career, I didn't understand that. Uh, and it was when I noticed that if I changed my attitude about that, people did what I wanted faster. So, and I'm not talking about being manipulative. There's a difference. So the awareness and the idea of communication is key to anything, any kind of success. It is about communication, and you must adapt. Right? What I did 40 years ago, what the profession was doing when I first entered it 40 years ago, is not what we're doing now. And if it were, we would not exist. Right? So in another 40 years, everything everybody's learning right now will not be the same. And we have to adapt. Our world will not be the same. Our bodies are not the same. Right? So we adapt to that and we optimize what we have.
Wow. My next question was, do you have any closing comments? I think you may have just said your closing comments, but I give you that opportunity to
Yeah, well, I think in closing comments, I would just say that what's most important, if we want our careers to be successful, if we want our lives to be successful, right, there has to be a mix. We have to go on living even though we're working. And we have to have joy in both aspects because that makes life a lot easier. We have to take care of the body and mind that we have, and it is a connection. The mind is connected to the body and the body is connected to the mind. So, and there's tons of research. I'm not just out there in la la land. So, this is an important thing. Finding a way that you can have joy in movement is important. And then finding how that joy in movement changes throughout your lifetime and throughout your needs is also important. So even though I really loved long distance running, I don't do it anymore. It does not bring me the joy it brought me before. And when I first started Tai Chi, it drove me insane. It was too slow. I just couldn't make the connection. So I didn't do it in that initial 20 years ago. But now, these last 10 years, it brings me great joy. And I see how complex it is and how physically difficult it is. But I wasn't ready for it 20 years ago. So we have to be okay with that, right? It is a spectrum of time that we have to travel through. And time brings changes. So we must adapt. Adaptability, I think, is the word.
All right. That's a great word of the day. Kathy, I so appreciate your time you've given me and my audience to hear these wonderful, wonderful insights about our bodies and how we can take care of them. So thank you again.
That's great. It's been a lot of fun, and I have enjoyed it myself.
Great. Wow. There were so many things that I noted today. I love what was it she said? We have to be in the flow and not in the static. I don't think I'll ever forget that one. Mustn't stay in the static because you can't get anywhere that way. As well. What was another one? A joy in movement. I loved, and the fact that our posture is not that ramrod aspect. I've got to get that image out of my mind. It's the ability to move from that to other things and back. Oh, I love this. Well, a dear friend once said to me as I sat in my wheelchair, Madeline, you only get one body in this lifetime. And what she was really saying to me was, take care of yourself. Now, today I felt I was revisiting that moment of recognition that this is the body I have to do the work I feel I am supposed to be doing, the work I feel I'm called to do. How can I do it unless I make sure that I continue to function? I mean, okay, it looks like I'm just sitting here, but in fact, I have to run around and do many things before the show, make sure this all happens. So I've got to be able to do that. Well, I hope, like me, that you got some ideas about how you can keep your body in better shape so that when more is called from you, you are ready to take it on. Let me say that again. To stay in better shape so that when more is called from you, you are ready to take it on. I've often worked with people who had opportunities in front of them and did not feel they could do it, whether it was physical or whether it was mental or whether it was just confidence. And I think in my little experience with movement of the body, I know that if you move more confidently, you somehow you think more confidently. So it's so important to keep our body in better shape so that when more is called from you, you're ready to take it on. I want to thank you for joining me today, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of Unlocked. If you did, make a comment on social media about what you learned and might do differently as a result. If you're on YouTube, click the like button. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe. And then you'll know what's coming and what's not. Okay. Well, we're almost there. I'm Madeline Blair, wishing you infinite possibilities as you unlock your resilience.